Sonali ma'am, is there any trouble switching on your video?
No, I'm just trying to adjust my laptop so that, the background is not so blurred, but I don't think anything can be done because I have an empty space behind me. So that's okay, I think.
Yeah, ma'am, that's all right. If you're comfortable with it, we'll go ahead.
I guess I'm fine. Just give me a moment.
Yes, ma'am. Participants, can you please unmute yourself and speak a word so that we'll check if your voice is all right? 093, you're not audible.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
All right.
093, check your audio connections. Can everyone please mute yourself? Ma'am, is it all right now? Ma'am, you're on mute.
Yeah, it's just the same, but I don't think anything can be done about it because I don't have a solid background. So it is going to be the way it is.
That's
It's
all
all
right,
right.
ma'am.
Never mind.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ruchita, and today I'll be the moderator for this round. Welcome to the second edition of 404 International Debate Competition organized by Vijayabhumi University. So without further ado, I would like to commence the semi-final round. For today's round, we have an amazing and very distinguished panel of judges. Today's panel of judges comprise of Richard Hillebrand. He is a director of academics and principal of Trivandrum International School, the first IB world in Kerala. He is a graduate of Oxford University, where he read modern history and gained his teaching qualification from Durham University. We welcome you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sonali Sen. She's a principal at Delhi Public School, Newton. She has made a name for herself in the 14 years as a center of excellence. She is an ardent environmentalist and has introduced several activities to instill in her students the desire to be environmentally conscious. She has encouraged her students to reach out to the underprivileged section of the society. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to listening to these children speak.
Tarun Sundaram. He is an advocate at the High Court of Karnataka. He has participated as a speaker, adjudicator, and a core member in 30+ national level debate, including the IIT Delhi parliamentary debate, Mukherjee Memorial at St. Stephen's, and BITS Pilani debate, amongst others. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, welcoming the two participants, we have FNF 093 versus FNF 138. First of all, congratulations, participants, to making up till the semi round. Before we go to the coin toss, I'll play a small video. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Vijay Bhumi University, India's first liberal professional university. It's a unique university.
Thank you, everyone. Before we proceed to the coin toss, here are the basic rules regarding the rounds. Participants, please listen to them carefully. The sides of the debate will be decided through a third-party coin toss application. I will request one of the participants to call the toss, and whoever wins shall be allowed to choose the motion, and whoever loses gets to choose the side, affirmative or negative. Once the sides are finalized, the first speaker goes first. The participant is required to make a 4-minute constructive speech, wherein, if needed, I shall indicate through chat whenever 3 minutes of their speech has elapsed. This shall be followed by the cross-examination by the opposition that should not exceed 2 minutes, and then the opposition speaker will have to give their constructive speech for 4 minutes. Participants, just a reminder, in the constructive speech, you get to ask only one question, and the opponent gets to answer only to that question. The more questions will be taken in the rebuttals. This shall be followed by the cross-examination by the affirmative party that should not exceed 2 minutes. This will be followed by 2 consecutive rebuttal speeches by each side, for which Each side is allotted 2 minutes, post which we will have the judges round where they can choose the question the participants. If the rebuttals are time consuming, a grace period of 30 seconds will be granted to the speaker, provided that the judges consent for the same. That shall essentially be the flow of this debate. A couple of ground rules that must be laid out. Firstly, all attendees, panelists, and participants are required to limit the speeches within the given time allotment, and in case they exceed their given time, I shall be at liberty to interrupt their speech and mute them immediately. Thirdly, I would like to remind everyone to pay heed to the tournament's equity policy and other laid down rules as we follow a strict no tolerance policy for any kind of violations. Before we commence with the debate, I would request everyone to clear any and all clarifications right away as no further interruptions shall be accepted. Participant judges, are there any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
None from me.
That's fine. Thank you.
Just a minute. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
It is.
One of the participants, please look aside.
Tails.
This is
Tails. Tails.
tails. Yeah, you're 138, right?
Yes. The first, sorry, the AI one.
So, as a speaker, 138 has won the toss. You'll be selecting the topic, which is
The AI one. I
Okay.
think that is the first motion.
okay. Speaker 093, can you choose which side you
For
want to
the
talk?
motion. For the motion.
For the motion. Okay. To clarify once again, the motion of this round of the semi-final will be this house would give highly advanced artificial intelligence the same rights as humans. Speaker 0138 will be against the motion and 093 will be for the motion. Both the participants, you get 2 minutes to prepare for your speech. Judges, could you please keep your videos on? Thank you. Zero nine three, can you please switch on your video?
Yes, just a second.
Judges, I hope everyone have the access to the evaluation form. Thank you.
Yes, we do. Thanks.
Zero nine three and 0138, your time is up. Let us begin the semi-final rounds for the 404 debate 2021. We'll now have the opening speaker delivering their speech. 093, your time starts now.
Greetings, everyone. I'm FNF 093, and I'll be speaking for the motion. Talking about artificial intelligence having rights, many would be quick to say that these rights are given to humans, to people. To that, I ask, what is a person? If you look at philosophy, I'd wish to quote Descartes, who aptly said, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Or maybe look at Karl Marx, who said the ability of someone to work makes them a person, and called it the very essence of our nature. Then, by that reasoning, isn't a highly advanced AI a person? It can think, it is rational, and it can work. In fact, it can do all of these activities millions of times faster than humans can. Does that not mean an advanced AI constitutes a person and hence it gets rights? People keep making this distinction between man-made and natural. Is a human not made by a man and a woman? Similarly, is AI not simply the brainchild of scientists? Advanced AI is far superior to humans in terms of efficiency and rationale. And it's time it gets the recognition it deserves for the same. This desire to call AI a lesser being than us stems from the primordial egotistical instinct of man to believe that he is the most important. Back from the days when we thought the sun revolved around the earth. It's time to discard these old falsehoods. Without giving AI proper rights, we cannot use them as effectively as we would wish to in an ideal world. Nations still traditionally recognize a copyright to be something only a human can claim. Advanced AI is capable of producing artworks such as music and portraits and should receive legal protection over the same. Else, it would simply be plagiarized as the AI cannot copyright it. This year, an AI named Raghav in India received co-authorship for a painting it published, which is a phenomenal step towards giving AI the right it deserves. If an AI malfunctions, the responsibility is put on the faulty AI, not its user, meaning that we give responsibilities to AI. However, we forget that we made rights and responsibilities go hand in hand. We confer responsibilities upon humans while giving them rights. But then we conveniently forget to give the rights that come along with it to them, to AI. Is this not oppression and slavery? So it's well established that giving AI rights is the moral thing to do. But what about prudential? AI would never be truly autonomous unless it has rights. And those rights are required for it to conduct its very purposes. Humans developed AI so it could take away some of their load and make life easier. How could AI fulfill the very purpose of its life if it does not get rights? Is this not counterproductive? If we only needed help in extremely basic tasks, then industrial equipment was already enough for that. AI was made to help us in complex jobs, requiring decision making and creative thinking, and hence it needs rights for them. Moreover, not giving ownership rights to AI disincentivizes programmers from making it in the first place. If a highly advanced and expensive machine gets no more recognition than a hammer does, then why would anyone manufacture it? The topic of emotional intelligence is often brought up to justify how humans are superior to AI. However, Nico Alacerilla, an AI expert, states that due to the large resource bank of faces and expression, some advanced AI can assess a human's hidden emotion far better than several humans can. In conclusion, we see how it is evident that AI is clearly at par with humans in terms of their abilities and even philosophically qualified to be a person. AI needs these rights to carry out the functions we expect it to. And it's
093, your time is up.
yes, I'm just wrapping up. And it's high time we provide for the same. Thank you.
The opposition party shall now cross-examine the affirmative speaker.
You compared AI to slavery and oppression. Explain how a non-sentient being is being oppressed when you use it for example, economic profit or for the development of society.
First of all, there's a fallacy in the question itself, wherein you call it a non-sentient being. The very concept of thinking about whether an AI should have rights is by the assumption that the AI has consciousness and sentience, which is why, and there are even examples for the same, wherein in 2009, AIs were developed with the entire two AIs were put against each other, and they were given the instructions to maximize their own profit, and they learned to lie to each other, which we considered a human trait. In 2017, AI created an own language for itself while communicating so as to maximize the efficiency with which it talked. It is clear by history that AI is slowly developing sentience and consciousness. And hence, if it has those qualities, then not giving it the rights it rightfully deserves means that we're essentially oppressing it. So here, I'd like to reject a very fact in the question wherein you stated that AI does not have sentience, because if you look at history, it clearly has shown signs of having sentience.
Thank you. On to the cross-examination from the opposition side. We will now have the opposition speaker's speech.
Artificial intelligence refers to the intelligence of machines. If we look around us, we witness the influence of AI over our daily lives. The way we now ask Siri or Google Assistant to do menial tasks for us. It won't be long before we live in a world where humans and AI live together. When the humanoid robot Sophia was granted citizenship in Saudi Arabia, the first robot to ever receive citizenship anywhere in the world, many people were rightly outraged because now she had more rights than human women living in the same country. This brings forth a lingering question, especially as scientists continue to develop advanced and human-like AI machines. Should robots have same rights as human beings? This house opposes the idea of giving highly advanced AI the same rights as humans. The idea of granting AI the same rights is a preposterous one because at the end of the day, an AI is just a machine. Even the most sophisticated machine is just a machine. It is not a living being. It is not an organism. It would only be the sum of its programming, whether done by a human, another computer, or if it becomes self-programming. Can robots be smarter than humans? Yes. However, it does not change the fact that robots are of a different form from humans. It seems very strange indeed, for example, that robots would be able to discover the laws of physics. I'm not downgrading what robots are or will be. I'm a realist about what they are. Technologies to support humanities. Moreover, consciousness and intelligence is not the same thing. Deep Blue, the robot who beat the chess master in 1977, was clearly intelligent in some way, but few people believe that it was actually conscious. How is granting rights to a non-sentient being such as your TV, for instance, logical? Moreover, our emotional brains are so complex and they are based on the way that we perceive the world and ourselves. An AI could mimic our expression, sure, but it cannot feel our emotions nor understand us truly. The reason for the no feeling aspect is pretty simple because AI does not have a sense of consciousness. Consciousness is everything you experience. It is the tune stuck in your head, the sweetness of chocolate mousse, the throbbing pain of a toothache, the fierce love for your child, and the bitter knowledge that all feelings will eventually end. Will Sophia ever be able to feel these things? Besides, the very basis of rights is suffering. Human beings evolved pain because they needed to survive. They came up with the concept of rights to protect themselves from suffering. How exactly will an AI suffer? How exactly will it know pain unless we program that into it? Remember when Facebook had shut down one of its AI systems after chatbots started speaking in their own language, which used English words but could not be understood by humans? What if that happens on a grand level? What if the AI enslaves you and the downside is that the humans won't be able to protect themselves because AI will have rights too? it could endanger the whole human civilization. Furthermore, a human being is a unique and an irreplaceable individual with a finite lifespan. Robots and other AIs are computational systems and can be backed up, stored, retrieved, or even duplicated into a new hardware. A robot is neither unique nor irreplaceable. AI could never be as valuable as human lives are. Humanity is defined by our sense of ethics and morality. Will an AI listen to logic or ethics when we know sometimes that logics and morals do not coincide? For example, the analogy of an AI program tasked with the making the perfect airplane, which could theoretically decide that it needs paper, and paper comes from trees, and trees are impacted by global warming, and global warming is caused by humans. So its best bet is to make the airplane. Is to eliminate the humans. It's not moral, but it's logical. And hard logic is what machines are governed by. AI cannot be identified as human biologically, philosophically, or legally. Thus, it should not be granted the rights because it does not have a human consciousness, and giving them human rights could make us extinct and endanger the entirety of human civilization. Thank you.
Thank you, participant. The affirmative party shall now cross-examine the opposition speaker.
Okay, since you talked a lot about feelings and people
Yes.
suffering, feeling things, then
Yes.
are people suffering mental illnesses which cause numbness to certain types of pain and emotion? Are they not human or less human than other people? Furthermore, what about somebody who's brain dead? Somebody whose brain does not function anymore. That person cannot have any feelings or emotions. In fact, the person does not have any response to stimuli at all. Then are you saying that that person is not a human by your very logic?
No, I'm not saying that that person is not human. It's not true. What I'm saying is that the feeling aspect of us, the emotions that we have, it is one of the things that makes us humans. But apart from that, that person has an actual brain, that person has an actual heart, and therefore that person has rights. But a robot or an AI, for example, it has none of those things. That brain dead person still has a brain. That robot is simply the sum of what you have programmed into it. It is limited to what you have put into it. But a human being is not like that. Therefore, we should think about the feeling aspect of human beings. And feelings is not the only thing that makes us human, but it is one of the things that makes us human. And therefore, we do deserve rights, but the AI don't. Thank you.
Thank you. On to the cross-examination from the affirmative side. We will now have rebuttals from both the sides. Each of you get 2 minutes. One of you can start now.
Isn't it in a set order?
You guys can ask the questions. 2 minutes for each person.
Big Boss, huh?
Affirmative side, you can go first,
All right.
then the negative.
Okay, so first of all, talking about AI as a tool and saying that giving rights hinders the usage of AI and negates its purpose is like saying an employer should not give rights to their workers because they were employed for that job. Does this not stress upon the previously mentioned aspect of slavery, wherein slave traders would buy slaves from Africa and then would not give them any rights? And then they would justify it by saying, if I wanted my slave to be less efficient, why would I buy it in the first place? This is the very same argument, and the faults in it are self evident. There are always job specifications. As it is unreasonable for a doctor to be asked to go to a burning building, but it is simply a part of the job for a firefighter. And a similar distinction will exist in AI, and this distinction can coexist with their rights. One of the primary faults the opposition did was not recognize the rapid development of AI. The opposition mentioned Deep Blue and its fight against Gary Kasparov. But Deep Blue was made in 1997. And since then, we have come a long way. As unlike humans, AI evolves at a very rapid rate. And now, even if Deep Blue did not have a sentience, we could claim that robots such as Sophia clearly do have one. There are robots such as Pepper, which can identify human emotions even better than some humans can. Then can we not say that they have a sense of empathy in them? The opposition must acknowledge that AI has improved vastly, and hence it must be given rights for the same. Furthermore, the opposition mentioned the experiment by Facebook. There is a flaw in that, wherein this talked about the experiment being shut down and AI being malicious in the terms that they created their own language. In any job, do we not create our own lingo so as to communicate with each other better? In the stock market, in the hospitals, we always create our own lingo, which is understood often only by the people in the very organization. Furthermore, I'd like to remind the opponent that Facebook never incentivized them to speak in English in the first place. They simply told them to make the process as efficient as they could. And they did so by adopting a shorter language. And the program was not shut down, it was simply redirected to a more English-based medium. Furthermore, the opponent mentioned that an AI cannot philosophically constitute a human. I'd yet again like to reiterate that the primary pillars on which our personhood rests, according to Karl Marx or even Kant, say that if we have the very, first of all, if we address Karl Marx, the very essence of our ability to work is the essence of us being human.
093, your time is up.
I'll wrap up. And furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, Descartes, one of the primary theorists for personhood, said cogito ergo sum. And AI has been proven to have the ability to think. So can we not logically conclude that AI is? Thank you.
Harpreet?
I'll start. As mentioned again and again by my opponent, that they are being oppressed. Human beings have this tendency to emphasize with everything, even the things which we essentially made for our use. Why are we emphasizing with them? Why are we simply not using them for the betterment of our world? Secondly, he talks about the same rights. Explain how would we give the right to family life to Alexa? How are we giving the right to life to an AI such as Sophia, who does not exactly have life, as we call it? And we cannot ignore the ethical concerns that are there. What if the robot just works on the straight path of logic? What if it does not consider the practical parts of it? Secondly, there are also privacy concerns in this place, because the AI keeps a lot of data in it. Okay, what is the guarantee that that data will be encrypted? What is the guarantee that it won't share it? What is the guarantee that it won't manipulate you, because it is smarter than you? It could be smarter than you. And what is the guarantee it won't manipulate you? Just the way you manipulate tigers because you are smarter than them. So we need to make sure that we consider these possibilities too before we just go ahead and say that let's grant the same rights to them, because these are dangerous implications. What if we all just go extinct because we gave them the same rights? Let's consider these. Let's think about them critically. Thank you.
Thank you. With the speeches and the rebuttals done, we'll now have questions from the judges if they have any.
I've got, yeah, please, ma'am, after you.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. One question to each speaker, if that's okay. The first question to the affirmative speaker. Rights are only as relevant as their corresponding responsibilities or duties. Rights don't exist in vacuum. In the case of AI, how do you propose that we enforce or penalize to make sure that these duties or responsibilities are complied with? Do we put the owners in jail every time the AI breaks a law? Because it serves no purpose to put AI in jail.
So first of all, putting someone in detention is not the only way of penalizing them, which is wherein an AI has any particular faults. There's one primary thing that AI has which humans do not, which is the ability for improvement, and very concrete improvement. Because in its very essence, we created prisons for them to be reformative. We did not want them to be detention centers. We created them so that people who are not sanely working in a society could go there, improve, and come out a few years later. And with AI, that process can be finished within a matter of days, because all it requires is a mere change in code and then some internal processing. So first of all, we can correct the faulty behavior in an AI in case an AI is held liable for a crime. And furthermore, in case the AI commits a mass atrocity, wherein capital punishment seems like the only logical punishment for it, then we can always delete the source code of the AI and also delete its database. Because as shown in the past, whenever AI has had some kind of malfunction due to which people believe it is unethical for it to continue functioning, it has been shut down. As Sophia was recently shut down by its owners due to some statements it made in public forums. So AI can also be, and it's far better. If we give AI rights, we can also confer upon it the responsibility to uphold those rights. And hence, we could actually penalize it, because the current norm is that in case an AI malfunctions, the responsibility is put upon the immediate handler of the AI. So that can also be put to an end, wherein the AI can be held accountable for its own actions.
Thank you. Ma'am, after you.
Yeah. Is it that each of the judges will ask each of the participants a question, Ruchita?
Ma'am, one judge gets to ask a question overall.
All right. Sir Richard, would you want to ask a question? Or should I go ahead?
You go ahead, please.
Yes? I didn't get you.
Yeah, yes, if you'd like to go ahead, please.
All right. Okay. So this is for participant 138. Why can we not accept that giving equal rights to AI as well as humans could lead to the evolution of the human race living in harmony with machines? And how can we actually work towards creating this kind of a more progressive, evolved world?
I say that AI do not deserve the same rights as humans because they do not have the human qualities, I believe. But I'm not saying that there could be some legal provisions in place to make sure that we have a more advanced society so that we are moving towards betterment. For example, the copyright thing. Yes, if the AI is making its own creation, yes, it deserves that. But if you are giving AI for example, the right to marriage, or for example, it has the right to clean air, or if it has the right to clean environment, how is it entitled to it? It does not need it. So it is giving it the human rights is not the correct idea. We can instead put in place a solid legal system so that we make sure that it is accountable. We can make sure that AI is more ethical, maybe, because it could actually be dangerous for us if it works on pure logic. I don't believe that it will ever get to the emotional level that we have, but we can program certain things into it, certain principles, so that it works according to that, and we have a society which is actually going towards betterment rather than its own doom. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, judges. Before we go to the feedback, can the judges fill the evaluation form and confirm it?
Do we need to do it right away?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
After it's done, can the judges please confirm?
Yeah, I've submitted it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, yes, mine has been submitted as well.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, I have also submitted.
Thank you, judges. We'd like to ask the judges to provide feedback on the overall level of the argument and on the speeches of the participant, if they want to. And I would like to remind them that they need to do so without disclosing the results of this round.
I think we could ask Richard, sir, to give in his opinion.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mark. Yeah, I was. Thank you both to 093 and 138. I mean, that sounds very much as if we're already in the world of robots, doesn't it? When we start referring to people like that, both of you, I felt, were really well informed. Your base from which you started and able to both to argue your case was one in which you were able to deploy information very successfully. And you both used it in your original argument and then in responding to the others. I thought that was an impressive position, an impressive quality from both of you. And then similarly, the use of language. I think that you had a clear argument presented and you were able to present it in a very good use of language as well. I think within this, one of the things that you might consider is whether you want to go for an absolute position, i.e., should artificial intelligence have exactly the same rights as everyone else, as humans, or are we talking about something that's more graded than that? I think there's often an advantage to being slightly more nuanced at times. And similarly, from the alternative point of view, where were you going to place your flag, as it were, in terms of arguing your case? But overall, a really high quality of informed debate about this particular issue, and clearly an issue that's relevant not only for now but for the foreseeable future as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Ma'am, after you.
Please go ahead, Tarun, and then Tarun, sir, I'll follow up.
Yeah, please. Oh, absolutely. Again, very high quality of debate. It was very interesting to hear both of your speeches. I think both of you sufficiently focused on the first half of this motion, which was AI, contextualizing AI, the state it is in today, and excellent knowledge of background facts and examples. The only bit of feedback that I have generally to both participants is that I thought the second half of the motion was equally deserving of some attention, which is when you talk about rights, just to contextualize what sort of rights are we talking about? Are we stretching this as far as giving them the right to vote? Are we, as Mr. Hilbrand rightly stated, are we talking about all? Or are we just talking about some that are relevant to AI? I thought that both the burdens on both speakers would have become much clearer if we had some conversation about what's the nature of the rights that we're talking about. And examples were very helpful, but just as a point of feedback, another way to run another way to contextualize these arguments is also by analogy rather than just example. So, we give rights to animals in many cases, which are similar to, but not exactly identical to human beings. Increasingly, we've given rights to trees and aspects of the environment. Now we've also stretched it to giving fundamental rights to idols, and places of worship enjoy certain fundamental rights. So these are analogous situations which really help to understand the burden in the debate. And that's my only feedback, is to, focus on both halves, who we're talking about and what we want to give or not give them. But other than that, fantastic level of debate. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I think Tarun sir and Richard sir both have summed it up very, very well. Students, I think you all have done a fantastic job in expressing yourselves with clarity. And what I found to be really admirable is that you all were not aggressive. I mean, you were putting across your point, because what happens is, in a debate, you're so focused on, convincing others, that you tend to become a little aggressive. And that is something I did not see. And that is something I really admire. There was a lot of positivity in the way you expressed yourself. And you definitely, there is a lot of room for improvement. And I'm sure with the feedback that you've been getting, I'm sure you will definitely use them as a positive step forward and improve upon yourselves. And I think it's more to do with the feeling yourself as to what you can do, and reflect on the whole process that has happened today and in the past, and figure out for yourself, how else could I have been better? How else could I have expressed myself better? So this is more, use this as an introspection and figure out how you can, go ahead. Because both of you are very, very good and very, very promising speakers. And this is just a debate of a topic, and I'm sure you would have done equally well if you had, used the other side, if you were given the other side rather to speak. But it is very important for you to, look at the total picture and understand how can you speak so that the other person understands your language. But I must say, I really, really appreciated, and there was never a dull moment, and very, very well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, we have come to the end of this round. I thank everyone for being part of this competition. The results of the round shall be released soon. Wish you all the best for your further round and hope you stay safe. Thank you. Participants, you may leave. Judges, you may switch off your mics and your videos and stay for the next round. Thank you.
I had a question to the judges if they may wish to entertain. So, because the agenda explicitly stated that should AI be given the same rights as humans? So shouldn't the proposition not go on the nuanced approach as mentioned by the judges here? Because while the opposition can do so, because there's a bit of space of vagueness there, because they're opposing whether AI should have the same rights. So they could also say that they have partially the same rights. However, doesn't the proposition necessarily have to take a very extremist approach in this case?
Tarun sir, would you like to respond to that?
Happy to, yeah.
I think he has a valid point, and I think you could.
Absolutely. So 093, to call you by your number, that's a very good question. And it's important when you're looking at a motion to clearly identify what your burden of proof is. Now, as you stated, the motion suggests, should AI have the same rights as humans? Certainly one interpretation of that is to suggest that they should have all the same rights as humans, like each and every right a human has, an AI would have. But I would say that in and of itself is a fairly extreme position. Taken ad absurdum, that's a fairly tough position to defend. But the way I understand it, and I think is a very reasonable understanding, is when you say the same rights as human beings, considering that there are some similarities between AI and human beings, particularly in how they've made them look, and they've made them, resemble human beings for some reason, similar rights or rights applied to humans applied in the same manner to AI, but not necessarily the entire suite of rights. Are we going to let AI elect our representatives, for instance? Do they enjoy right to privacy? By that extension, you'd never be able to reprogram them. So I'm saying, I don't believe that a house would place a burden that's absurd on either side. So when we say same, it could be for those rights we're speaking about, the same manner it's applied to humans, it shall be applied to AI. I didn't personally understand it as meaning the entirety of the suite of rights. Although you could have that interpretation, I think it would have been very reasonable for you to have defended a slightly more reasonable ground. That's my take.
Any other questions from participants?
I was actually going to say the same thing. I was going to say that how could he have said no to that? Like he had to defend the same rights thing. He could not have gone and said ki it should be, it should be slightly changed. That would mean that he would have been on my side. So I think he was right in his place. I was going to ask that too. So thank you for clarifying that.
Just to add on very quickly, and I'm sorry if I'm exceeding the time I have. You're also very right, opposition speaker, in what you're suggesting. But I think the point simply is that this is why I said that the context is important. If you're able to contextualize what rights you're speaking about, then it would be much easier to engage on whether we give it to them or whether we don't give it to them, because the list of rights is quite long. So when we have the debate without that context, I completely understand your concern. You're defending an all or a nothing type of position. I'm just saying that I think there's a lot of scope in between to have this debate where we're talking about what rights. Because as I said, there is a situation where non-human entities enjoy certain rights, which are very akin to the rights that humans have. So I believe that that's the space in which this debate operates, rather than just we give them everything or we give them absolutely nothing. But those were the stances you took, and I think very well argued and defended. So not to take away from that at all. I was just giving in response to the affirmative speaker's question.
Thank you, sir. Participants, you may leave now.
Ruchita, would we be commencing the next round immediately?
Yes, we will. We should probably I think you have a break of about 5 minutes. We'll probably be starting at 11 or max 11:05.
Participants and judges, could you please switch on your videos? Zero three three, can you just unmute yourself and speak a little so that there's no technical issues? Zero three three, unmute yourself and speak.
Hello.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay.
Thank you. Zero floor eight, please switch on your video. Zero four eight.
But there actually seems to be a problem with this background. Give me a moment.
Try to sit in a white background. Zero four eight. Zero four eight, can you please switch on your video?
Is this better?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sonali ma'am.
Yeah, I'm here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rachita and I shall be the moderator for this round. Welcome to the second edition of For Not For Debate, International Debate Competition organized by Vijayabhumi University. So without any further ado, I would like to commence the semi-final round. For today's round, we have an amazing and very distinguished panel of judges. Today's panel shall comprise of Richard Hilbert. He is a director of academics and principal of Trivandrum International School, the first IB World School in Kerala. He is a graduate of Oxford University, where he read modern history and gained his teaching qualification from Durham University. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here and have the opportunity to listen to this high quality debating. So thank you, Rashid.
Thank you. Sonali Sen. She is a principal at Delhi Public School, Newton. She has made a name for herself in the 14 years as a center of excellence. She is an ardent environmentalist and has introduced several activities to instill in her students a desire to be environmentally conscious. She has encouraged her students to reach out to the underprivileged section of the society. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful being here, and I'm looking forward to seeing the two students speak today and express themselves. So all the best to both of you.
Thank you, ma'am. Arun Sundaram. He is an advocate at the High Court of Karnataka. He has participated as speaker, adjudicator, and a core member in 30+ national level debates, including the IIT Delhi Parliamentary Debate, Mukherjee Memorial at St. Stephen's, and the BIT's preliminary debate amongst the others. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, welcoming the participants, we have 048 versus 033. Welcome, participants. Before we go on, congratulations to both the participants to be part of the semi-final round. Before we start the coin toss, I would like to share a small video.
অহনা সেমিফাইনাল ডিবেট আছে ওর যে অপোনেন্ট সে আমার ক্লাসে
Thank you all. Before we proceed to the coin toss, here are the basic rules regarding the round. Participants, please listen to them carefully. The size of the debate will be decided through a third-party coin toss application. I will request one of the participants to call the toss, and whoever wins will be allowed to choose the motion, and whoever loses gets to choose the side, affirmative or negative. Once the sides are finalized, the first speaker goes first. The participant is required to make a 4-minute constructive speech, wherein, if needed, I shall indicate through a chat whenever 3 minutes of the speech has elapsed. This shall be followed by the cross examination by the opposition that should not exceed 2 minutes, and then the opposition speaker will have to give their constructive speech for 4 minutes. The cross examination participants, only one question will be allowed, and the opponent gets to answer only to that one question. This will be followed by the cross examination by the affirmative party that should not exceed 2 minutes. This will be followed by 2 consecutive rebuttal speeches by each side. The affirmative goes first. Each speaker gets 2 minutes. Post which, we will have judges round where they can choose to question the participants. Judges, a small clarification. One of you gets to ask one participant and the other gets to ask the other participant. Only one question is allowed by all the 3 judges. Thank you. We then will have the rebuttals, and if the rebuttals are time consuming, a grace period of 30 seconds will be granted to the speaker, provided that the judges consent for the same. That shall essentially be the flow of this debate. A couple of ground rules that must be laid out. Firstly, all attendees, panelists, and participants are required to be on mute at all times except when asked to speak. Secondly, participants are required to limit their speeches within the given time allotment, and in case they exceed their given time, I shall be at liberty to interrupt their speech and mute them immediately. Thirdly, I would like to remind everyone to pay heed to the tournament's equity policy and other laid down rules, as we follow a no tolerance policy for any kind of violation. Before we commence to the debate, I would request everyone to clear any and all the clarifications right away, as no further interruptions shall be accepted. Are there any questions? We'll now do the coin toss. I request one of the speakers to call for a side.
FNF 033 heads.
Since won the coin toss, I request her to select the motion.
The first motion.
And 048, request you to choose the side
Yes, I'd like to choose against the motion.
against the motion. To clarify once again, the motion of this round of will be this house would give highly advanced artificial intelligence the same rights as humans. Speaker 033 will be for the motion and 048 will be against the motion. Both the speakers, you get 2 minutes for your preparation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Zero four eight, can you please switch on your video? Thank you. Participants, your time is up. Let us begin the semi-final rounds for Fur Not Fur Debate 2021. We'll now have the opening speaker delivering their speech.
Should I start?
Yes, you can start.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ahona Chakraborty, and I'll be speaking for the motion. AI is a smart robot that acquires autonomy through sensors or by exchanging data with its environment, trades and analyzes data, is self-learning, has physical support, and adapts its behaviors and actions to its environment. In its standard definition, AI systems will demonstrate behaviors associated with human intelligence, such as planning, learning, reasoning, problem solving, knowledge representation, perception, motion, as well as social intelligence and creativity. For the purpose of this debate, it's important to distinguish AI from inanimate computers or softwares, as well as industrial or service robots that are not designed to be social. Let us instead talk about AI, or the social robot. They communicate through social cues, display adaptive learning behavior, mimic various emotional states. Our interaction with them follows social behavior patterns and are designed to encourage emotional relationships. Robots or AI are made to advance work more efficiently, as well as offer an emotional companionship to humans in need. Examples of early social robots include interactive robotic toys like Sony's AIBO dog and Innovo Labs' robotic dinosaur Pleo, and several more. Nowadays, AI influencers and digital models are creating quite a stir in the industry. One such eminent influencer is Michaela Souza, or as she's better known as, Nil Michaela. She's 100% programmed and has more than 1.5 million followers on Instagram. She's also one of the most used AI influencers in terms of marketing. In 2018, Lil Miquela took over Prada's Instagram account and did several other campaigns for other well-known brands. Naturally, this has helped her make headlines all over the world. And lately, she has become involved in activism where she openly supports the Black Lives Matter movement, among others. The concept of AI influencers has actually been around since 2016, and in some cases, even earlier than that. However, it wasn't until 2018 that AI influencers started gaining traction. At first, it might seem strange to use a robot for influencer marketing, but the matter of fact is that AI influencers have already become a hot topic, and several of the world's biggest brands have used them for very successful campaigns. The interest is currently mostly driven by fashion and lifestyle industries. However, they can slowly start to become an ambassador of globally recognized human plights such as racism, war, discrimination, the well-known LGBTQ movement, equality, and many, many more. Lots of people have supported this and are in awe of the development. These are the people that have already acknowledged that AI will become an increasingly more important part of our society, and they're embracing it. So should AI be given rights? Yes. Humanity has obligations towards our ecosystem and social system. Robots will be a part of both systems in humankind's future. We are morally obliged to protect them, design them to protect themselves against exploitation, and to be harmonized with humanity. There's a whole stack of rights they should be given, two of which I found quite apt for the situation, which are the right to be protected by our legal and ethical system, and the right to be designed to be trustworthy, that is technologically fit for purpose and cognitively and socially compatible. They deserve a chance to be accepted by society and recognized. Children are taught not to kick dogs, animals, or cause hurt, even if they're toys, robots, or remote controlled, so that the feeling and the sense of respecting all life forms of the biotic and abiotic nature can be inculcated in them from a very young age. This small thought process would help society progress to greater heights and learn to be even more inclusive on the whole. Certain AI of recent times do have psychological attributes, gradually giving rise to a feeling of protecting themselves from misuse, mishandling, abuse. They don't have a heart thumping continuously and a brain to think for themselves and act accordingly. So they have to be commanded makers to a certain extent, but that doesn't give humans a license to misuse them. Extending legal protection and social rights to them would also make quite sense, a lot of sense. Keep these points in mind. I end my speech today supporting the motion proposed by the House. Thank you for listening so patiently.
Thank you, participant. The opposition party shall now cross-examine the affirmative speaker.
Yes, so my question to you is, you mentioned in your speech that AI does not really have a mind to think of their own, so human beings should be protecting their interests while dealing with them. So my question is, when you're extending something as important to rights that are similar to human on an entity, how would you justify handing them those rights if they do not have a personhood? And if you believe that that's fair, then why don't you want to give the same rights to, say, animals?
So the motion to begin with mentions advanced AI systems, which is already giving us like this point of view to consider that they're already on a high pedestal. They function with a certain level of efficacy, and hopefully they won't cause a lot of troubles, which is why people are consider giving them rights in the first place. They have showed considerable help in the society, and they have deserved that title for themselves to be recognized as worthy of being given the human right. And as far as it is concerned, animal rights are separate while human rights are separate. So you can't really consider human rights to be applicable for animals and vice versa. That's how I'd answer.
Thank you. On to the cross-examination from the opposition side. We'll now have the opposition speaker's speech.
May I start?
Yes, you can.
The House claims that it would give highly advanced artificial intelligence the same rights as human beings. But the opposition would try its best to convince you why that is a horrible idea. First of all, advanced AI, as defined by the proposition, which even comes close to being given the same rights as a person, is a future idea. Hence, the greatest problem with the proposition is that they choose to determine whether beings in the future deserve rights without even having interacted with them in the first place. Moving on, it's highly unlikely even in the future that machines, no matter how sentient they are, would even require the same rights as human beings, because their interests are not likely to align with ours. Because even if we were to accept that they actually have sentience, which is not clarified by the proposition, the physical reality would always be of a machine. they wouldn't need rights such as right to food, right to work, etc., when the purpose of their programming is to carry out human work without having to suffer. Which brings us to our next argument. Giving highly advanced artificial intelligence the same right as humans defeats the purpose of AI. This is because at the end of the day, they are still tools that are created to help humanity expand by automating processes that require a degree of human intellect. AI could help us tons in the future, as mentioned by the proposition speaker. But if we were to give human rights to these AIs, then the purpose is clearly defeated. Because one of the primary reasons we need AI is to protect human beings from ethical exploitation to meet the intellectual needs of a future world. That's extremely unethical because it willingly brings conflict into a world when it serves no true purpose. The next idea I'd like to bring to the table is the fact that this is not a humans versus AI debate as the proposition puts it. The opposition does not question the personhood of advanced AI in the future. The opposition would just like to live in a world where the question of giving AI the same rights as human beings is not even an idea that's brought up. Because the fact that the world proposed by the proposition even has this question of whether or not to assign human rights to AI is the greatest challenge I have against them. Because at the end of the day, if we analyze the reasons behind the irrefutability of human rights for human beings, we'd realize that rights are fundamentally meant to minimize suffering. If the proposition's world sees the need to extend rights to artificial intelligence, it means artificial intelligence has the capability of experiencing negative emotions like pain, suffering, exploitation in their world, which directly suggests that these things have been programmed into AIs, because after all, they do still run on human programming. It would be arrogant and selfish if we begin with trying to give a machine a flawed human emotional system when we can simply allow it to exist like the machines that they are. But the proposition's world does exactly that. It forces the ability to feel negative emotions on devices that don't require them, and then argues to slap the same rights as humans on these devices and call it a day. That's lazy, immoral, and unethical. Willingly bringing pain and conflict into a resource-depleting world means to support the rights of all human beings does not need an AI society with rights. Not only would it allow us to ethically explore the limits of our technology and help us economically expand exponentially as a society, making use of the technology, it would also make sure that pain isn't added to a world that's brimming with it if you try to live in the world proposed by the opposition. We need to oppose the motion of the House to make sure that the interests of both human beings and AI are protected in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, participants. The affirmative party shall now cross-examine the opposition speaker.
I suppose the whole motion is based on this big what if of what's going to happen in the future. You yourself mentioned that this is a very future idea. And then you mentioned how rights are meant to minimize suffering. So, considering some hypothetical situation to begin with, what if there does exist a society in the future where robots and humans are coexisting together and they're maintaining their social equilibrium in that sense? How would you justify not giving them rights? And what if they themselves are being exploited by their creators? You said rights are meant to protect. So why should it not be extended to AI as well?
Of course. Now, see, there's a problem with this. You are absolutely proposing a hypothetical world where AI has right, but the world that you're proposing seems to randomly exist in isolation to anything we've had so far. You have to understand anything that happens in the future has to be a progression of natural things. Hence, we cannot have an AI society that's randomly coded to have human emotions unless we actually program them to do so. The world we are suggesting here is the idea that our world wouldn't even give them negative experiences, the ability to actually feel those experiences, them to not need rights in the first place. You wouldn't want our car to have rights, right? If you drive a car for a long time, longer than you're supposed to, you wouldn't call that exploitation because it's a machine that isn't given sentience. So why would we give machine sentience and then slap human rights on it to say that it's now equated? The reason we make machines is that we don't have to exploit human beings to do the same work. So that is the future we're looking forward to. We have machines to help us and we can use them, and it's not exploitation because we don't provide them with sentience. Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you. On to the cross-examination from the affirmative side. We'll now have rebuttals from both the sides. Affirmative speaker, you may go first.
I acknowledge what my worthy opponent has said, but I do not fully agree with them. I do believe humans are the very creators of such intelligence, and I take that into consideration. But if creator and creation have equal rights, then the superiority of the creator is not maintained. This can certainly bruise the ego of the maker of these robots. But if facilitating the superiority complex is that important, then the purpose of making them in the first place, to help mankind develop and make everyday life easier for people, is defied. It questions the whole basis of creating an AI. The movie Bicentennial Man gives us a fair idea of what highly advanced AI could be like in the future. Although the movie focuses on the transition of a robot to human and then getting acknowledged as one, it teaches us innumerable values along the way. It narrates beautifully the tales of a robot that gains consciousness through gradual experiences, interactions with its surroundings, and the troubles that come along with it, with the ability to feel for itself and its environment. Judging by that context itself, it won't be the worst idea to give AI humans rights, not all of them, certain. People are given rights since they embody key values in our society, such as fairness, dignity, equality, and respect. They are an important means of protection for us as well. But why shouldn't AI be deprived of these just because it's a robot? And if the question caters to highly advanced AI systems, it's already assumed that they work with utmost efficiency and portray certain traits which are considered human. With this, I conclude my side, standing firmly in support of highly advanced AI gaining certain human rights. Thank you.
Thank you. The negative speaker may go.
Thank you so much. I absolutely acknowledge what the proposition speaker has to say. And yes, there are things that we can agree with you there, but what you're not understanding is that you're referring to present ideas of artificial intelligence that we have existing right now, which is not even advanced enough to comprehend human emotions in the first place. So even if we talk about the hypothetical world that we're talking about, the main argument that the opposition makes is that why would we willingly allow them to feel the need for rights? Why would we do that as people when we can absolutely make use of them as the machines that they are? Because that's what they are at the end of the day, machines. In a world that's already being deployed of human resources and exploitation of labor, we can absolutely choose to make machines do the same work for us and use human intellect to work on a daily society without having to make them suffer. That is exactly what we stand for. Moreover, the future that you're proposing, right? The fact that there might be sentient being in the future, therefore they might as well have consciousness, therefore they might want the need for rights. Here's the problem with that. Consciousness, as defined in the Journal of Science several times in the context of psychology, consciousness is something that we haven't been able to define within ourselves as human beings because it's an abstract psychological concept. Therefore, it's absolutely impossible to replicate that in machines because we will never know the true nature of our own consciousness. So we are not willing to have machines that have the ability to feel. We would actually be causing a hinder to our own development if we let machines have rights, program them to want the need to have rights, and then push rights on them. That's not fair, is it? Because the reason we want AI is so that they can work 24/7 and make a job easier for it and expand our own world and its humanity's great reaches. We can't make a human being do that. That is why we develop AI. So we don't want the purpose being defeated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With the speeches and the rebuttals done, we'll now have questions from the judges, if they have any.
আচ্ছা শোন তানুশ্রী ম্যামের ওখান থেকে না একটা ফাইল সেদিনকে ফাঁকা করছিল তার বলছিল ওটা বার করে তোকে দিয়ে দিতে।
Sorry for that. Judges, you may ask the question.
Okay, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay, so this is a question for candidate 033. When you said, you very rightly argued your point very strongly and very effectively, but I have a question for you. When we are talking of human rights, when we are talking of rights for humans as well as, and similar rights for humans as well as AI, an AI system rather, should a conflict arise, how would you ensure that there is no bias? And who is going to ensure that there is no bias? Because human beings, being the thinking sentient organism, would have would have the superiority rather to demand more for themselves. But, and of course, after all, the human beings are the ones creating the AI. So if they do have equal rights, who is going to ensure that there is no bias in the judgment?
So let me answer your question. As you have mentioned, that it is the humans at the end of the day that are creating the AI. So there will always be the sense of superiority persisting. It's just giving them certain rights would be providing them with a mean to be called equal. And I do believe at the end of the day, if this is a hypothetical situation, we are considering a completely probable world, something that could happen much later on. There could, like I've mentioned before, that there may or may not be a society which exists parallelly to AI. So an authority of bodies that consists of both humans as well as AI representatives could make sure that they come together and make unbiased rules which cater to both human as well as AI. And one little thing I would like to clarify is that an AI is not merely a machine that is made for work. It could be used for companionship and other emotional needs too. I'm not only mentioning it, I'm not only considering an AI that is used to help or ease production or replace labor. I'm talking about AI systems that can have an actual interaction for people that are lonely. Many people of old age might want a companion to talk to, or just somebody to like be there for them. And maybe an AI could take that role. And if an AI can think for itself and have a certain amount of consciousness and like thought process, then it can carry out that conversation and the interaction to begin with. So giving them certain rights would further validate, and the society as a whole could come to accept them even more as a part of it, an integral part of it. We're always developing, keeping certain things in mind for what we have in our immediate present, what we need in the future, and that scientific bent of mind for every creator that there is out there. So it's just a very probable thing that could happen in the future, and certain unbiased body could exist, which consists of both representatives. So certain factors are always kept in mind while making rules or governing a body which is full of differences, be it psychological or biological, whatever it may be.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Thank you.
Other judge, question for 048.
Yeah, I can take up a question if that's okay.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Actually, just picking up on the point that was just made in the 048, you were very clear that we don't have artificial intelligence machines that require rights at the moment. Why would we want to develop them in the future? I mean, a kind of a sense of that. I would pick up on that and say, well, isn't that limiting? Isn't that limiting the potential of AI, in that particularly this issue of the interaction with humans? If we see AI as a way of offering not just companionship, but actual care in a society in which care is something that is not just the attention to physical needs, but there's also an emotional element that goes with that. The AI that delivers that presumably will have, would be worked to have some kind of an emotional dimension to it. And so it's those kind of uses, I think, where it is conceivable to think about rights being relevant. And your position seemed to be it was inconceivable. So are you comfortable with the idea that we're going to limit the potential of AI in order to avoid the situation that the proponent has put forward?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I would like to answer that question. Yes, so you're right. Absolutely. If we do not give artificial intelligence the ability to perceive human emotions, they might as well limit the reach of artificial intelligence in the first place. But then again, we have to understand something simple, that we might as well program an AI in the future using our technology that we have in the future. We might as well make them able to perceive human emotions and actually extend care to people in a world that is starving of care, without actually having to personally feel the emotion of consciousness and sentience the way it's defined by the proposition. We don't want to have to code them to feel the need for rights that as they deserve it. Because first of all, it's something that is extremely inconvenient in a world where there obviously is a lot of biasness and social differences existing, a lot of problems that we have in society ourselves that we haven't been able to resolve. To absolutely promote the idea of machines to have their own will and then give them a solution by handing them rights is not the way to go. Because at the end of the day, it is still human beings who have the power to control what the extent is. Because we actually have AI companions on our phones right now, like Siri and Replica, a lot of these things. And people use them, right? And let's assume we live in a world where it exists in a exaggerated form of the same thing. But the basic code, the rootkit, is still in the control of human beings. So why would we give it the ability to feel its own emotions and conflict in a world where we don't need more conflict in the first place? So absolutely not limiting unless we limit it ourselves. Thank you for your question, sir.
Yeah, my questions to 033. A lot of what you mentioned about companionship, having a degree of feelings and emotions, these are purposes that are currently being fulfilled, let's say, for example, by service dogs. To many people, people who are blind, people who are disabled. What do you think if I were to suggest that we should elevate these animals to have the same rights as human beings? They should have the right to make end of life decisions for themselves, a right to privacy, extend it all the way to saying they have a right to express their vote. How would you respond to such a thing?
Are they capable enough to make that decision for themselves? I don't think so. Yes, I do completely agree that there's an emotional factor that comes into play when it comes to animals, and they don't have a voice for themselves. So they basically need us to stand by them in that sense. But they themselves are not intellectually, developed or progressive enough to express vote or have privacy in the sense that you're talking about. And the first point that you mentioned, that I'm sorry, I just forgot. But yeah, like, so circling back to what I initially said, that they don't have that thought process to begin with, and I don't think to an extent they don't need it either, like we humans do. We need it in a different sense, they need it in a different sense, and their rights are actually protecting their survival, and our rights cater to a lot more than just the survival.
Thank you.
Thank you, judges. I request the judges to fill the evaluation form before we give the feedback. Participants, by the time the judges give the evaluation form, could you please give an overall feedback of the entire competition without revealing your name?
So, is it okay if I go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this entire thing was a huge learning experience for me, starting from how to actually formulate debate speeches and rebuttals, because this is actually my first time taking part in a debate of this sort. And it's not just a national debate, it's on the international level. So I not only feel privileged, but I also thank my school for giving me this opportunity to take part. And I'm thankful for everybody who thought that I was capable enough to make it till here. And again, this was a huge learn. And every single topic has taught me a lot about judging things from two different perspectives and making comebacks appropriately. And it's just taught me a lot. So thank you once again.
Thank you so much. 033, 048.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with FNF 33. I had an amazing learning experience while I was here. And to make it this far, again, it's a privilege on its own. Like with every round, the fact that we get two topics to research on and learn more about is absolutely expanding the knowledge I have about things in general. And it has led me to several research tangents to actually find things that I'm interested in. And the judges' feedback has always been extremely helpful. So it doesn't matter where this leads to, but this experience is it's not disposable at all. Privileged to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Judges, please let us know when you're done with your fillings.
Yeah, okay, mine's submitted.
Thank you, sir.
I'm done as well.
Thank you, sir.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, stop and
Thank you, judges. We would ask the judges to provide feedback on the overall level of the argument and on the speeches of the participant. And I would like to remind them that they need to do so without disclosing the results of this round.
Okay, I'll go first. Congratulations to both the participants. I think you've done a fantastic job. The kind of research you've done, the kind of reading you have done, and put together the facts and compile the facts is really to be appreciated. I would just like to make one comment here that when you are putting across your views, you need to develop a connect with the audience, because you are not talking to yourself, you're talking to the audience. So you need to speak in a way that you will be able to, it's not just narration of the facts or just narration of your views. It is how are you going to ensure that the audience is able to accept what you're saying. So that was one thing, but otherwise I feel that you have handled the questions very well, and the rebuttals and the cross-examinations. I think both of you handled it very, very well, very effectively, very intelligently, and really admire the presence of mind that both of you have, because it's really not easy to be bombarded with questions and immediately think of an answer. So well done, both of you. I will leave the rest of the comments to the other two esteemed judges. Well done, children. All the very best for the future.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Mr. Hillebrand, after you.
Thank you. Yes, to echo what Mr. Nye said, very well done indeed. You know, I think the nature in which you conducted the debate was very positive in listening to your opponent and taking and actually responding to what your opponent had put forward. I guess in terms of feedback, I guess two things. One for each of you. With 033, I thought you had some really interesting points. It was quite niche, really, to begin with, in that influences undoubtedly are interesting and might be a way to go. But I think when people think about artificial intelligence, they often think more broadly, and you moved towards that actually more in the cross-examination and exploring those potentials. And I thought that you might have had a bigger pool of examples to draw on it. And secondly, I think as I inferred in my cross-examination, thinking of 048, I mean, you took quite a position that was almost that no rights could be imagined, and I think that again is is absolutely a position that can be taken and was argued with great passion, but may have made it slightly more difficult for yourself in terms of being as persuasive as you might have been. But both of you used the material you had with dexterity in these circumstances. Very well done indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi. Yeah. So let me start off by saying that it was a very high quality of debate between both of you, and I really enjoyed hearing it. I just a couple of points of feedback. The first is on the topic of engagement. My general suggestion would be that whether, the first speaker obviously has the liberty to set the parameters of the debate. Here's what we're going to be discussing for the next few minutes. And it's important that as you move to second speech and then back to questions and rebuttals, staged on the few things that the other person has also spoken about. Because as a third-party listener, it's a lot easier to understand the debate when both people are engaging on different sides of the same 2 or 3 points, because we all know there's 100 different points you can make within this motion. So broadly, the first suggestion would be keep it engaging in the sense that pick upon the arguments that your other speaker is emphasizing and taking a good position on, and engage with those rather than what you think is your strong argument or the easy argument to make. So that's point one. Point two is in terms of how you deploy examples. Very important. And I think both speakers made good use of examples, but I would say examples should be secondary to the broader point that you're trying to make. When you just lead with the example, as Mr. Hillebrand very rightly stated, you run the risk of making your scope too narrow and making it seem like it's that particular thing you're talking about. So examples as an aid to a broader point, rather than as examples being under the spotlight themselves. So that's just the 2 pieces of feedback. Thank you. And thanks for a great debate.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, judges. With this, we have come to the end of the round. Thank everyone for being part of this competition. The results of this round shall be released soon. We wish you all the best for your future rounds and hope that you stay safe. Thanks again and have a nice day. Participants, you may leave.
Thank you, everyone.
Judges, could you please give an overall feedback about the competition?
Well, I think it was very well conducted, and that you were able to make time is something that really is admirable. And overall, the topics itself were extremely debatable topics, very current topics. I wish one group at least had the other topic as well, because that is something we keep debating in the class, in school, amongst children. And AI, of course, is definitely the current trend, but it is more futuristic, with respect to the rights and, where it will lead us. But where we are talking about, glorification of martyrdom, I think that topic itself is a very, very interesting topic. And I'm sure we would have got a lot of more, very, very enthusiastic and passionate expressions. But well, the children are the ones to choose. But well, Ruchita, and to your entire team. And thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much.
And it was wonderful hearing the views of the other 2 judges. Really very, very, I would say, positive, and a lot of takeaways.
Thank you, ma'am. Pleasure having you here.
Thank you. I felt I learned a lot about a lot of things. I think the quality of the input from the participants was very high. I mean, I know they were given notice of this, and that shone through. They don't clearly taken advantage of that, but how they deployed it was really interesting, and the level of debate. And I'm not a veteran of debates, and therefore I learned a lot actually by listening to my fellow judges as well, and helping me to think about how they presented things. So it's been a very rewarding experience for myself, and all credit to the university for hosting this, and the team putting it together. It ran really very smoothly from when I was first contacted and asked about it to this moment now as we finish in time. So very well done indeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure having you here. Tarun sir?
Yeah. I mean, congratulations on a very smoothly run debate, Ruchita. I really wish that every debate I had ever participated in had a moderator, after attending this round, because it really eases things, keeps it efficient. I think, at least from the perspective of the participants, they will for a long, long time look back at this and say that this experience, among a few others that you get in school, really would have shaped some of the bigger decisions that they make in terms of the career that they choose, the activities that they undertake in college, because I know it happened for me. A few debates and a few positive experiences in school really shaped the direction that my career took. I think you really will hear a lot of these students come back and say that this debate did that for them. So in that sense, it's truly a fantastic social service that's being done by the university and the organizers in promoting these skills, because public speaking, regardless of the language in which it's happening, is something that it's a good boost, whether you're a lawyer or in a company or teaching or in any field. Interacting with others like this through spoken word is an amazing skill to be able to hone. So I congratulate you, and it's truly an honor for me to share the judging panel with Sonali ma'am and Mr. Hillebrand. Years and years of experience in education and academia. It truly is a privilege. So thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much, judges. You may leave now.
Thank you.
And all the best, Ruchita.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Goodbye.
Bye.